So Four Knights of the Apocalypse chapter 174 is officially out, and we get Gawain versus Turret beginning in this chapter, and it was so much fun to read. We get to see Gawain flexing her might. We also get to see her just be incredibly cocky towards an absolute asshole that is Turret, while also seeing Turret's big sense of own ego and overconfidence completely get diminished over the course of this chapter with just how Gawain is outplaying him in the most simplest ways and just so easily. But we'll get into it when we get into it, and we have a really decent cliffhanger for this chapter. But before we jump into things, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And again, I will be doing a retrospective review of the 7 Deadly Sins manga and the Fairy Tail manga once I hit 30,000 subscribers. So, once I hit that goal, look out for that on its way. Now with that out of the way, let's jump right into the chapter. Chapter 174 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, titled Gawain vs. Turret, with a really cool looking image of Gawain facing off against Turret. And we're just going to describe how happy I am that we're finally going to get some more Gawain action. But this chapter starts off in the waiting room as Anne finally opens her eyes to Percival just staring blank at her close range as she yells at him that he is too close. Percival says that she's in the waiting room, and she's like, oh wait, Nazianz is up next, right? But Percival says that there's no problem with that, as Nazianz and Donnie walk over to the waiting room to meet Anne and Percival, as Nazianz is so glad that she's awake, and Donnie praising that Nazianz kicks some major ass. Anne apologizes for not being able to watch Nazianz fight, but Nazianz says that they ended up fighting one of the people that kind of pulled that cowardly move on her, and Nazianz got some revenge for her. She thanks Nazianz, but then gets a bit sad, saying that she feels kind of bad since she's the only loser in the room. But I like how Donnie's like, what about me? Honestly, she's probably not really paying any mind to Donnie after how he lost, but to her, she is legitimately a loser. But Percival ends up saying that that's not true, because she won in his book. Even when she was down, she never let go of her rapier. And Percival thought that was the coolest thing out there. Anne obviously gets a bit blushed and embarrassed as she's still holding onto her rapier as she thanks Percival. A sweet and heartwarming moment amongst these characters. Nazianz also has one of the biggest and most wholesome smiles on his face looking at the two of them right now. But Donnie's still like, hey, what about me right here? I like how this just is running gag that no one really acknowledges that Donnie lost first or is even been a part of the tournament to begin with, just a running gag. I find that kind of funny. But we then cut to Rothus meeting up with Turret, as Rothus is beating himself up over losing like that. And Rothus is being told that he is very pathetic, and even to be someone by Ironside's side is just laughable by Turret. But Rothus says, look, I messed up. I made a little mistake, okay? It happened. But Turret isn't having it. He says, even if it does, little mistakes aren't allowed in a real battle. And as that said, Gawain makes her appearance, laughing up a storm, as she says, if you dolts can't tell the difference between a little mistake and fate at work, you can't even win at this festival here, much less in a real war. Turret is absolutely pissed off, looking at a smug Gawain. Honestly, every time Gawain acts like this, and right now, it is very much earned for her regardless at this point. Like, she can back up her tough talk. I'm excited to see everything that happens from this point onwards. Now the next fight is about to get started, but we cut over to Beltrop in his viewing area, as he recognizes Gawain being next, and knows that this Gawain is Arthur's niece, and was always told that she was a wild child, but not wild enough to join this, he was thinking. But he then brings up something important. He wonders, I feel like I'm forgetting something quite important about her. Something's felt odd for a while now. The announcer knight, whose name I keep forgetting, asks Ironside if he wants to take a rest, but Ironside says, no, I'm fine. Start the next match. Now this is obviously another piece of important information that Beltrop will most likely break out of the enchantment that the rings are using to kind of disassociate Percival, Gawain, and everybody else entering the tournament as the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, as well as their allies, from, Beltrop, one of the Four Perils. And the fact that Beltrop knows that Gawain is there, and that this is Gawain, the niece of King Arthur, he can't remember that she is part of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. That piece of information is still very much alluded to him. So that is a really nice thing about these rings. he could potentially recognize some of these characters, but the important pieces of information to really showcase their danger to him and how important they are eludes him thanks to those magic rings that Gawain made. So thankfully, they're not entirely useless or easy to break. But I do think Beltrop, within the next few matches, is going to break through this bit of illusion and realize what's actually going on. But the first match of Block B begins, pitting Gawain against Turret as Percival and the gang make it to the arena to watch the fight. As now, this matchup begins. Turret takes out his weapon, saying, "Usually I let a kid like you off the hook after 100 lashes on the rear." Okay, Turret, reel it back a little bit. We don't want to have that imagery. But he says, "But if you keep insulting the holy knights, child or not, you won't leave here alive, girl. You will regret being foolish." Gawain casually chants a spell and unleashes a giant-ass fireball, causing a massive explosion. As, with a comedic gremlin look, she says, "You talk too much." As everyone's like, okay, that was a big way to start off this match. But yeah, this is very much Gawain. She's just not having any of Turret's bullshit. He's like, "Dude, you talk too much." Boom, giant fireball in the face. But it shows that Turret hasn't been injured by this attack, and we see those little footprints in the ground showcasing the Purgatory Beast that he summoned previously. As whatever this was, it blocked the massive burning fireball that Gawain launched. And Gawain recognizes this weird feeling, and Percival points it out that this is the exact same creature that was used to take out On in the previous matchup. And obviously it's invisible, so it is definitely a very difficult thing to fight. After being told this, Turret says the word Sylvain, which is the name of this creature, and it begins to swipe at Gawain, but she dodges and flies into the air at the last second. She says, "An invisible creature, so that blocked the fireball just now, huh? Well, it can't do much up here, can it?" Now, as Gawain is hovering in the air, we then see the image of this invisible creature launching itself into the air behind Gawain and slamming her towards the ground. But Gawain manages to catch herself relatively quickly and lands on the ground. She says, "So it's invisible. It flies and fire doesn't work on it. What a freak of nature." Turret says, "See the despair you're in now? Exactly, you're doomed to a torturous death." But then Gawain begins to chant a relatively long spell, revealing that she has cast a thunderball. But not just one, but did this 10 times. Creating a multitude of electric thunderballs all around her. But in an instance, they seemingly just vanish in an instant. And the crowd is wondering what's going on, that the magic just vanished. And Turret, the cocky bastard that cannot back up his shit, assumes that Gawain just instantly used up all of her magical power just chanting the spell that many times and saying that she misjudged her own skill. He gets serious, saying that now stop with the needless effort and accept your punishment, as he tells Sylvain, the mysterious creature, to attack Gawain from behind. And as we see that it's coming from Gawain on top, in an instant it is lit up by a large blast of electricity. And look, this panel of Gawain just looking resolute, not phased by this giant thing that she just electrocuted like it was nothing. It looks so cool. I feel like I'm going to put this in the thumbnail. But this surprises everybody that a burst of lightning happened in the air, and then everybody heard this mysterious roar. Now, Turret tells this invisible creature to get away from that electrical ball, but Gawain snickers and says, "No matter where your invisible pet goes, it'll be pursued by invisible balls of lightning." As we see, this creature ends up getting hit and blasted by another 6 thunderballs and then falls onto the ground. And in total, Gawain only ended up using 7 out of the 10 thunderballs that she cast and are now invisible, that she ended up casting an invisibility spell on these magical attacks. So, in the next page, we finally get to see what this purgatory creature looks like, as it has essentially been fully defeated and is no longer invisible. Honestly, really cool and unique design, I gotta admit. Purgatory beasts are always a mix of either nightmarish, horrific, weird, bizarre, or goofy, or just kinda cool. This is cool and bizarre. I like it. And Gawain now gets chibi-fied and just ends up being incredibly cocky and very happy that she just pulled one over Turret. As she says, it'd take a purgatory beast to have flight, invisibility, and fire resistance. It's clearly strong against flame and ice, so I tried a little electricity instead. Looks like it sure did the trick. And I like how Gawain instantly put the pieces together and came up with an instant countermeasure for this purgatory creature, and basically beat it instantly with a well-placed trap. And honestly, this shows her own battle IQ has truly evolved over the course of the series and even the time skip, because before she would just mostly go muscle form or just try and mess with people during the Demon Realm arc when she isn't in her buff form, but now she's more strategic than she normally is and is really taking full control over these situations. Now we're off in the crowd as Balin, of all people, comes up and says that's quite the fervor out there, as he meets up with Hauser, surprisingly enough, and Hauser says quite the wild child too. As Balin, I assume, is the one saying this, like, oh, that young lady? I was like, oh, so that lady is the one that is causing all this commotion? And I'm curious, this is definitely Nagba saying, yeah, Gawain's definitely going to win this fight relatively easily to fight Balin, but definitely going to set up what we're going to see from Balin and setting up an actual potential dynamic once the two of them end up fighting in the next round, because this was set up during the literal preliminaries, so definitely seeding intrigue between them. As Gawain hovers over Turret, she says if a pet acts out of line, it's the master who has to atone for it, prepared to get a major beatdown. But Turret puts away his weapon and begins to pull out a flute, as he says, did you think I only had that one? As he then pulls out his flute and seems to play a song, saying, my magic force lets me call creatures from Rothless's purgatory rift to do my bidding. As he chants adjustment, and in a flash, we end up seeing him summoning more purgatory beasts. As he keeps saying, if you hadn't been a would-be sorcerer just now, you would have died without a mark on your cute little face, as he laughs with Percival acting concerned. As in the final page of the chapter, we see 3 brand new, bizarre, grotesque looking purgatory creatures standing over and facing Gawain. As Turret says, now there won't even be any bones left to pick up, as the chapter ends. Now this was honestly a really fun and engaging chapter. Gawain was basically dominating this whole fight when she figured out how to literally counter that invisible purgatory beast, and wiped it off with little to no effort once she figured things out, as she just more or less dominated the fight as treating Turret like a literal ice sword that he is. But I like that Turret is actually the perfect partner for Rothus. It makes sense why they fight together. Rothus opens up a gate, a rift to Purgatory, and Turret uses his flute, his adjustment ability, to summon forth purgatory beasts that he in fact can manipulate and control. And it shows that even though Nassians probably destroyed that purgatory gate, there might have been just a small enough residual for Turret to call more purgatory beasts out from that rift, which is interesting to say. But yeah, next chapter is probably just going to be Gawain taking out all of these purgatory beasts, maybe using her new buff form and just a powerful sun-based attack to wipe them off the face of the map and beat Turret relatively easily, because I doubt he's gonna push Gawain that much unless these purgatory beasts have some bizarre conditions and resistances that are gonna have to make Gawain think a lot more in this upcoming fight. But either way, with that two panels of Hauser and Balin talking about Gawain really quickly, it's very obvious, especially with the setup that we had when this arc essentially started, that Gawain and Balin are gonna fight. So Gawain's definitely going to win within the next chapter if we go by the exact same formula and the exact same pattern that we've been seeing and pacing of these last 4 matches of Block A. But what did you guys think of this chapter? How do you feel about Gawain in this fight, how she's handling herself, and how do you think things are going to go in the next chapter? And what do you think is going to happen next going forward, now that Beltrip is slowly but surely putting the pieces together that he's being manipulated by some sort of perception spell within the upcoming chapter? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Look, I'm just so looking forward to seeing more Gawain in action. It has been over a year since we've seen Gawain do anything in the manga and in this time skip, and I am all but excited to see her fight seriously and just dominate some utter fools. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day. それなら僕と踊りませんか